This is Seventh Generation Warfare. I'm your current host, John Nelson, and in this episode, we will be looking at Ready Side Up questions in regards to water. So, if you remember, Ready Side Up is the effort in a Seventh Generation Warfare, kind of like prepping, but you can take on any kind of form you want, homesteading or permaculture or any kind of those things that get you more build your readiness, resiliency, and self-reliance. All that goes into Ready Side Up. And the point is that you don't want sudden misfortune of any sort, be it a natural, societal, or personal disaster to derail you from your path in life and therefore take your option of exercising your will away from you, or your children's ability to exercise their will away from them. So when I was doing this kind of commercially, I guess, and doing readiness audits, here are the questions I would ask in regards to water. Now that water is only one of 7 classifications, we have food, water, shelter, security, economics, community, and fitness. And so I will be making videos on all those classifications and all the questions and things you might want to consider. Happy to hear feedback at any point or additional recommendations. Water is the second one. If you haven't seen the food one, please go back and watch that. And please subscribe to catch the other classifications as they come out. So water, it's not just about hydration, although that certainly is extremely important, because without water you're going to die pretty quick. But it's also about hygiene, and it's also about irrigation of crops and stuff. So if it gets really bad, I mean, hopefully you're developing your gardening skills or have very good connection to people who do have good gardening or farming skills. But if you're getting into producing food on your own land, you're going to need that irrigation, that ability to get water. So that's why that's in there. And hygiene, it's people can get pretty gross pretty quick. So let's get into it. First, I'd ask people what their water source is. Is it a well or city? It's going to have right away in the water classification, you're kind of going two very different directions. If it's in the shelter classification, if somebody lives on a half an acre in a rural setting or a half an acre in an urban setting, you might still be able to have the same level of garden. Your heating systems might be kind of similar, but with water, if you have a well, you have water on your property. You just need to be able to get it. If you're on city water, you're completely dependent on other people. And city water hasn't been used as a weapon per se yet, but I think it's a very strong leash around people's necks that they don't realize that, if the government wanted to, and maybe they disguise it as some sort of disaster or contaminant or something, but they can get the population to obey them like that if they shut off the water. Could be disguised as, oh, it's contaminated and we need to shut it off, but in the meantime you need to do what we say, sort of thing. Little conspiratorial, but it would bend your will, wouldn't it? Looking into the well, you should have a sense of what the specifications of your well are, how deep it is, where the static water line is, what the replenishment rate is, etc. And that'll come in more a little bit later. But know some things about your well. Are there ponds, lakes, or streams around? This is going to influence whether or not you have the ability to access water, not directly on your property, but from adjacent properties. Where are those streams, ponds, and lakes located? Are they actually uphill from you? Could you actually divert that water to your land? Are you is it a major city or a minor brook? Is it a vernal brook vernal spring that only runs in the springtime? Or is it a big river? If you're living in a city that's on a river, what kind of quality is that water? There's many municipalities that dump sewage into water, and major rivers in developed countries tend to be pretty gross water. So, not to say that you can't purify it, which we'll get into, but just kind of getting the sense of the whole lay of the water in your area. Going on, what kind of aquifer or watershed are you on? So an aquifer referring to the water under the ground, and the watershed being the water above the ground. The ground, the streams and the rivers and all the tributaries and all that. Um, where you are can greatly affect the quality of the water around you. So luckily for me, I'm on top of a hill. There's only one other house that is uphill from me. So as far as groundwater runoff, I'm only affected by what those people put on their field, and no one else. But if I were to live, a couple miles away in more of a valley, I'm affected by what everyone above me is putting uh, on their land. And speaking of that, I once worked at a golf course when I was in high school, and it was immediately adjacent to a reservoir where people got drinking water from, and the amount of chemicals that the golf course was spraying on the fairways on a daily basis was quite disturbing, because I imagined all that was just running down into the reservoir. So if your water's coming from a reservoir like that, you might want to get it tested. You should be getting all your water tested, but be mindful. And don't just rely on government agencies to do the water quality checks for you, because if they fail to do so, if the governance system breaks down, if any of these things happen, then what are you left with in your water? So, kind of changing gears here. Bulk water storage. Do you have it? What kind of containers? Location? What are your primary reasons for having bulk water storage? You're you're not going to be able to store enough water to survive any extreme length of time. But having bulk water to get you through some shorter uh, situations might be a acceptable strategy. Uh, my generator will run my well. I also have a dug well that I can put a bucket down into. But I still have bottles of water just to be able to flush the toilet in a power outage. Just something extra on hand. Um, and But bulk water storage, if you're living in a city and the power goes out, a lot of the cities have backup generators on the municipal water systems, but how long do those last? How reliable would that be? So it might be such that if you live in a city, as soon as the power goes out, you want to start filling hundreds and hundreds of gallons of water just to have in the just in case. And there's systems where you can fill that right in a bathtub. It's basically a big bag liner that goes in your bathtub. It's a pretty good strategy, easy to fill, and then you can pump it right out. Whole home water purification. Do you have any kind of systems in your house to take affect the quality of your water? Water softeners, radon systems, arsenic systems, anything like that. And what do those systems look like? What does your water look like if you don't have that in place, or if you're not in a position to service it? And if your water, the natural state of your water is so gross that not having those systems in place means it's undrinkable, you might want to seriously consider finding another way of securing water in that really, really bad situation, so you don't have to evict yourself from your house if you can't service your whole water systems. Uh, I missed one. Uh, any kind of bulk water storage for animals and gardens. Uh, a pond, building a pond would be a great way to do that for animals. Is if you have a wet area on your property, capturing that water to sit as a pond for longer periods throughout the season, or you can put in some sort of cistern or something like that. Rainwater collection off your roof, any of those things are good strategies. Here I talk about water quality tests. You should always get water quality tests on your water. Any source that you think is a potential for becoming a disaster drinking source, you might want to get tested to know what you're dealing with. Could be a pond across the way, and but if it's got all kinds of weird, yucky bacteria in it, that might change your calculation. You can always filter and purify and sterilize and distill in various ways, but it'll shape what other assets you need to acquire in order to do that. And keep in mind that just thinking like, oh, there's a big lake, a half a mile away, we'll just go and get water from that. Water is extremely heavy, and having to, I think, 8.3 pounds or something a gallon. So having to transport large quantities of water daily is quite an undertaking, and if you're doing that on foot, you're gonna exhaust yourself pretty quick. So uh, I think you need to plan on a couple gallons a day per person for drinking and cooking and hygiene. You can get by with quite, you don't need to use the 17 gallons or whatever it takes for an average shower, um, but you still are going to use quite a bit. So just keep that in mind. So aside from the whole house purification system, what other type of purification systems does somebody have in place? There are plenty of options out there, as I already mentioned some of them, but even something that, as a $20 Brita or Pure filter that you buy at the grocery store, it would go a long way. You just would want to make sure that you have enough cartridges to service it. There are filters like the big countertop stainless steel ones that their filters are advertised as lasting longer. You can buy stovetop distillers, and distilling water is going to be your most sure way of getting rid of contaminants. You can even purify water in plastic or glass jugs out in the sun. The UV rays will kill contaminants in it. But you'll want to do your own research, know what your outcome of your water you want it to be, and go from there. I am no medical professional, but if you look at the water that people around the world drink, I think we in developed countries, just part of it is we kind of just have weak stomachs. So I think people can get by drinking very dirty water. There'll just be an adjustment period to that too. So just like with food and fasting, you can build fasting into your diet to get used to not having food. I think you can drink some older, dirtier water. Get your stomach used to give your stomach a little used to giving a little bit of a fight. Um, but I am no medical professional and do not. I'm not telling you to go drink contaminated water where you might drop dead of a parasite or something. So, alternative methods of hygiene. What can you cut out of your hygiene? How would you strip your hygiene routine down to its basics? What are the core elements that you think are necessary in hygiene? Um, the next question is about storing extra hygiene products. So, like if there's something you can't do without when it comes to hygiene, a certain product or soap or something that you need, you probably want to store a lot of that on hand. But as far as alternative methods of hygiene, think of not being able to take a shower or bath unless you're absolutely sure of your ability to provide power kind of indefinitely, unless you're like off grid, and have your own battery bank with solar panels. Generators will eventually run out of fuel, and so what are you going to do in those type of scenarios? Uh, and I think again, I think you can rough it out if you're mentally prepared to do so, but without hygiene, your skin will start to crawl at some point. If you've never been that dirty in your life, then maybe give it a try. It's very uncomfortable. Um, so yeah, store the extra hygiene products. Get your water tested. Find out where all your water sources could be coming from. Uh, and that kind of wraps up the water questions. Now those questions are just to get the information out of people, and then tailoring the solutions for people's individual scenarios is where the art comes in. So I hope you found that useful. If you're feeling stuck with any of the Ready Side Up stuff, please feel free to reach out. I also have the Facebook community, Ready Side Up, Not Quite Prepping, Survival, or Homesteading, and there's a lot more information over there. Please like, subscribe, and share, and I will see you on the next Ready Side Up video on 7th Generation Warfare, where we'll be talking about shelter, which is protection from weather, heating, ventilation, and air condition, power, and trash removal, those sort of things that all come under shelter. So this is 7th Generation Warfare. This video was titled Ready Side Up Water Questions, and have a good day.